Alright, so my game is tentatively called Video Game Journalism and You. I'm Thaidan Goguen-Bogdanis. The title will make more sense in just a moment. So basically you play as a journalist reporting on stories and like events that are happening inside of video games. So you might report on a game of Call of Duty and it's like you were inside the game. You're kind of reporting on like why are these two random factions starting to attack each other and destroying this whole town and stuff like that. Or you might report on a game of Grand Theft Auto that someone is playing where like they start shooting at people and like get in a helicopter and stuff, and then all that happens is they get sent to the hospital and then they come back out completely fine. Basically, the gameplay overview is that you would be in open area levels. uh, the first like phase would be basically you hide from the quote unquote player, call it the fake player, the person you're getting a story on, being it's representative of a player, and you'd be trying to avoid death while watching them and the consequences of their actions. So you'd be observing like what they do and the things that it causes. You can also interact with NPCs while you're doing that to help you kind of build a story. And afterwards, in the next like phase, you walk around the area and try to piece together like environmental information into a story and talk to NPCs in kind of like with dialogue trees like The Witcher or Mass Effect, that kind of thing. Um, Not super in depth, but just asking questions and figuring out what happened and how people are affected by it. After that, you pick multiple parts of a story to write, potentially presenting it in different ways. So, like, you could talk about glitches that you see or stuff like that, which happen intentionally. Or you could talk about cheats that the player used as if, like, they broke reality or something, and NPCs afterwards would start to react differently to the fake player in other levels depending on what you write. So they might freak out if you start to point out that they're glitching stuff, and their code might basically break intentionally for the sake of the game. And you pick stuff by like picking like here's the title I want to go with, here's the opening paragraph, middle, and the end, and you get more options based off how much information you investigate. So the point of the game is basically to get players thinking about the consequences of actions on AI and whether it's ethical to do like cruel things to AI, because it's just an AI, so it doesn't really matter, but it might. I want players to kind of think about that sort of thing. And I want them to be thinking about like simulation theory as well, and what the differences are between a simulated mind and a mind that we know, like our own minds or animals and stuff like that. The reasons behind a lot of my gameplay choices are here. The game is in third person to prevent the player from embodying the character. I want them to feel separate so that the player doesn't think it's a game about it's trying to simulate the real world. I want it to be clear that it's a video game, so NPCs will kind of talk like NPCs, and your player will, you might like make a remark on yourself respawning or something like that if you die, and things like that. I want it to be clear that it's breaking the fourth wall pretty much. Clear enough, not overtly obvious though. Um, Making the player character a journalist was also very intentional. This encourages the player naturally to try and think about events that are happening, like glitches and stuff. So when they see something like that, they'll be thinking about it like, oh, that's really weird. And then when they get the opportunity to write, it'll show up that you can write about a glitch and write like something weird happened. I saw this card disappeared or something like that, or a cheat the player used. And so I want players to be thinking about what that means if NPCs could actually react to that stuff. The reason I want to make the game is basically to tell a story I don't think people really have told that much, or uh, not in movies and games and stuff. Obviously, it kind of has happened, but not all the time. It should also be getting players to think about like what it means to be alive compared like with our life compared to an AI life. And it's not super relevant now, but I think it could grow more relevant as AI becomes more prevalent in our lives, and I think it's worth talking about, even if a lot of it is just because it's interesting. But I think it could also help players think about life differently and think about other aspects of life as well and what makes us alive. So yeah, that is everything. Thank you for listening.